everyone, so in this video I'm going to show you how to make this bracelet, which is probably more like a cuff style. This version I'm going to show you is very simple, but if you want you can add in extra details and you can add beads. I just want to show you how I've made this very basic frame, and then in future videos I'm going to do some more advanced versions with different styles and techniques. This is just half of it, obviously that's not a full bracelet. So I plan on doing this as the beginners, more simple version, this one as the intermediate, and then an advanced version as well. So they'll be coming up shortly. So this is the one we are going to begin with. So if you're interested in learning how to make this, then keep watching. I'm going to be using 1mm wire. You could use a thicker gauge, and for the frame I probably would encourage this, but I have used 1mm here and it is sturdy enough to wear. I have moulded this to my own size, and it's definitely strong enough, but if you do want that extra security I would suggest maybe a 1.25 or a 1.5mm, but for this, just to show you, I'm only going to be using a 1mm. Also, a mandrel of some form will be needed to form these semicircle, whatever you want to call it. Sorry, my brain's not working very well today, guys, brain fog. Yeah, so this shape, and I actually just used this, it's just makeup nail varnish remover, because I wanted to use this top. So I wanted to show you don't have to just use you know, official jewellery making things. You can use anything, you know, if you've got a bottle that's slightly thinner, depends how big obviously you want this to be in the end as well. But this is what I used. It's just under 2 inches wide, well, across. I'm not going to do the whole circumference of a circle thing, this isn't maths. So yeah, that's the size I chose to use to create this shape here, and again I'm just using things that I have as household objects so that we don't end up, you know, buying more than we need to. I do think that a bracelet mandrel is a good idea for you guys to have, but if you are new and you don't want to spend the excessive amount of money, it isn't necessary, and for this you can get away without one. And to actually turn this into the shape that I've managed, I actually started wrapping it around here and then I finished it around my own wrist so that it fits me, and then you can tighten it, and if you wanted to you could attach a clasp so that it would be tighter as well. So I just wanted to say that to begin with. So I ended up using 1mm and 0.315, which is the 18 and 28 gauges for you American people out there. So yes, to begin with we're going to need 2 lots of 7 inches for this part. The amount of wire you use will depend, the wrapping wire obviously will vary. I'm just going to say that now. For this love heart section, depends how big you want this to be. If you don't want it this wide, obviously you will end up using less wire, but because when I created the frame I had 2 loops either side here, I wanted to do the same on the bottom so that it matched. And also it gives it that little bit of extra stability. Again, we've wrapped here, and I actually would have continued more, but this was just a test run when I was doing this one. So the love heart was about 30 centimeters, and again that's how big I created it. Feel free to change that as you want. Now for the frame itself, the amount of wire, you want to decide how long you want the section to be. So that is, let me straighten this out a moment. You want to decide how thick you want it to be. So the base I've gone 5.5, which actually once it was straightened would be 6, and then you have to decide how big you want it, width, is that width? Yeah, the width that you want it to be, or height, whatever, length, height, that's it, right? Sorry if I'm wrong, just correct me below. Yeah, so how long you want it, how high you want it, and then add in also the extra sections. So that obviously 6 inches is 32 centimeters twice, and then the height, so I've probably used about 70 centimeters, and again that's what I'm going to use next, but you can trim it down, and again it depends how big you want it. I turned this into a cuff style because that's what I wanted, and I haven't done anything extra at this point. So depending on the size you want it, modify it to that. Just make sure you have enough obviously wire in the first place to do the length that you want. The average size I think is 7.5 inches, and because this is a cuff style you want a little bit of space, so you might want to go for 6.5 inches on one half, same on the top, and then however much you want the height to be, and then make sure to add in that extra. So I've probably got another 1.5 inches either side to make this particular cuff. Again, it is up to you how much you use and the size that you want. This is just how much I have chosen to use. So we're going to start making now, and I'm going to start with the frame. Now the curve here is good, that's purposeful, so I'm going to decide roughly where I want to start to create my roundness, and we want these two parts to end up roughly at the same area, so it's one thing to bear in mind when you are creating the shape. Okay, and when you're happy with where it's going to sit, that is when we will mould the sides around. And again, I'm using a household object to do this. Pull it tight. And then we have our basic shape. Now, you don't want to hammer it at this point because you will end up curving it around near the end, but this is just to begin with. I'm just going to maneuver that a bit more so that we're a little bit more even. Just adjust it as you see fit. We're probably going to adjust it a few more times as we add in the wire later on. This is just a beginner's part. Yes, so now we're going to do the love heart that I mentioned. So I'm going to take more 1mm wire. Now I've probably just taken too much again, but I just like I like taking more than I need. I have to say I am not very what's the word when you're conscious about preserving the wire. I'm not very good at that. 6 and then probably about 3, so that's 15 inches there. You can do the maths on that one. I don't feel the need to try and do maths today. So I'm gonna go to the halfway point. We've done our loop there, turn it around, create the rest of the love heart. Adjust it as you want. Doesn't need to be perfect. I know I say this every time, but when I first started jewellery making, I was a little bit OCD about having everything exactly how it should be, exactly perfect, blah blah blah. And honestly, the more confident I've got with it, the less concerned I am with that now. Because if you look at this, obviously that love heart isn't perfect, and yet it still looks really cute. It's obviously handmade, it's obviously, you know, got a lot of love and attention in it, and it took me a while to appreciate that, in the fact that wire work and jewellery making is something that comes from inside you. So you don't have to be so, it has to be this, it has to be that, it must be exactly. you know, I know obviously you can follow tutorials and you can take the advice and you can do, you know, exactly to the T, but I think the more unique you are with your own jewellery, the better it will be. And especially if you do have any sort of illness, you know, don't put any more pressure on yourself than you need to, or even if you're just a beginner. Jewellery making is supposed to be fun, so remember that, you know, don't be so, it has to be this, it has to be that, because at the end of the day, if you've made it and you like it, that's what counts. So just remember that, guys, because I see so many people who start jewellery making and they give up because they think they can't get it perfect, and nothing in life is perfect, to get philosophical on you. So just remember that, just have fun, you know, take the tips that you learn from other people and play with them. Okay, so we're going to create our loops. You all should have seen this done a million times by now if you've watched, unless you're new to my channel. Hello, if you're new, please hit that like and subscribe button, I would love that very much. So yeah, you create your loop like this, make sure you close it, and if you can see on this one, I've made sure to put both of the loops downwards. Not doing that right now because it's not important until near the end. Okay. Now this is when you kind of want to know exactly where the frame is going to begin. And at the end we're going to, like I say, we're going to point both of these down, so that's something to be aware of. Once you fix on the side, I'm going to probably do it this way, and I mentioned this in a previous tutorial, I think I've mentioned it a few times now, but whichever one you do the most loops on, so if you, whatever weave you're going to do, I'm probably going to do a free weave for this, and then add this in, and I'll just connect the two and go straight over. You want one of them to be, the one which you do the loops on, you want it to be open so you can just go straight into it, rather than if we did it here and that was attached, we wouldn't be able to get back in here, we'd have to go like that over and over, whereas if this is here we can just quickly do it that way. So that's just another top tip, even though I've mentioned it a few times, but it is pretty helpful for wire weaving. And again, in a moment we will begin to attach our love heart. So you really want to know at this point, you know, you want that frame to be set exactly where it's supposed to be. If you need to adjust it, this is the time, because we are about to fix it in place. So that's just something to think about now rather than later. Again, we can adjust it nearer the end, you can make it thinner, but it's something that you want to bear in mind. Okay, my lovely, so now I'm going to do the wire wrapping, and obviously at the very beginning, because the love heart's going to be added in later on, I'm just going to be doing it on these two wires to begin with, and I'll take my trusty 40 centimeters of wire, which I do every time, and I've said it before and I'll say it again, the only reason I take this length is because it is comfortable for me. Because of my dexterity, because of my lacking energy levels, I do things that are easier for me to do, so that is the only reason that I do it this way. Nothing special about that other than that very simple reason, and obviously for me that is important. And if you have any, you know, dexterity, energy, health problems, you know, you might have an eyesight problem, or, you know, just I don't know, you could have anything, and just find what's comfortable for you and stick with it. Don't feel like you need to do everything exact. Okay, and again, this is our last point to make sure we have it at the right point. So I've done 3 wraps on the bottom, and now I'm going to go over, and don't forget you want to keep a good tension so that you can wrap back in between. And again, I've made sure that the loops that are single loops are on the bottom one, which I can get inside of easily. use your nails to make them sit next to each other if you need to. Okay, and then just do your free loops until it gets to the point where we are going to add in our love heart. So I'm just going to fast forward this a little bit. So this is going to be the last point where you can adjust the frame, because once we fix the love heart in place and we decide exactly where it is going to sit, these sides are then not going to be able to move, as in move over. So if you want to have a set place where things are going to sit, this is the point where you're going to decide that. Also the same for the love heart, it won't be able to be changed after this point. Well, obviously you can change it within the free wire, but once it is set in place you won't be able to extend or decrease it. So that's just something to be aware of. So yeah, this is kind of your last point. If you want to make any adjustments, then make them now. Decide where you want the love heart to be fixed, and we're going to start the wrap here. And if you want, you can take more wire and have some, you know, like go to the halfway point and then wrap that side, which is probably what I am going to do. I'm going to do this side first, then come back and do that. I'll also say up here, I changed it slightly because when I finally decided where I was going to have the frame sit, this side ended up having more, so I cut it and brought it back. I'm going to go here and I'm going to take, well, I'm going to take double the amount I normally do, because like I say, half of it is going to go that side. So rather than my trusty 40 centimetres, I'm going to take about a metre. I can't find my cutters. Oh, side note, just so you know, every time you use your wire cutters, you do blunt them a little bit. I've got a pair here and these are very blunt, they only cut in a couple of places. So if anyone has any tips on sharpening them, I know if you want to sharpen scissors, you can cut foil. I haven't tried that with that, but does anyone have any tips for sharpening these? Because rather than buying another pair, I'd rather if I can just sharpen them quickly. I wonder if a Dremel would do that. Has anyone done this before? Let me know in the comment section below. Okay, so let's take that. I'm going to find the halfway point. Obviously it doesn't need to be bang in the middle, because we're probably going to end up using more wire than what we're about to do, and you need to find exactly where you want it to sit. Again, this is the point where whatever you decide is going to be fixed. Okay, so that's what I want. Okay, and then finding the halfway point. I'll end up doing with this another wrap on there, so I don't need to do that right now. I think I'll do 1, 2, 3. So this is going to end up sitting here like this. So I'm just going to attach like that. And as I've said before, because this is the open one, that's where I want to do most of my single loops. So I think I'm only going to do 2, and then I'm going to do a different wrap. I might do 2 to 5 here. 1, 2. Okay, I'm going to pull this forward a little bit just so it's easier for me to wrap around. Okay, and then on this side, just again to secure it in place so that it is where I want it to be. I'm going to do another wrap just around the frame. Then we did a few wraps around the open. Okay, and then we did 2 to connect it to the frame. You might wonder why I'm doing this at this point, just because one, the frame is still movable. It's still going to be movable even after this until we put those 2 loops at the end like we did here and we've wrapped up to them. It will still be able to move despite our best efforts. That's just one of the things with wire. Actually, you know, it might be easier if I just switch sides rather than trying to fight it so much. And then same wrap on this side. 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, so that's another tip in case you aren't aware of it. If ever you're finding one side difficult, just try to flip it over or do it, you know, turn that way or whatever. Just find a different way, because that often makes it easier for you if you just move it around, because you will find you have a way of wrapping that you're more comfortable with, and the wire will adjust to that. Okay, so I distorted the wire slightly whilst I was making, so I'm just going to, like I say, this can still move at this point. It's only at the end that it'll be fixed. So actually I'm not going to even bother with that, I'm just going to do it at the very end. So now I'm just going to do the 5-2 wrap along here and then along here. I'll probably fast forward it because I'm sure you guys know how to do this wrap. If you don't, there's a video for connecting 2 base wires. It probably will still be visible on this one. I'm just going to fast forward it for the point that obviously you don't need to hear me counting wraps every single second. So make sure your tension's fine so you can fit back in between, make sure you're comfortable, and just wrap. Okay guys? So now we have wrapped it and I've got the frame how I want it. This is the point where we end up fixing it in place, and that's where we do our loops. So just so you're aware, when I did the 5-2 I ended up doing 11 on each side, just because I wanted it to match. Okay, so now that we've done the loops, this frame isn't going to move. Well, I mean, we can move these bits, but it's stuck now. It's where it's going to stay for receival. Yes, there is slight movements still available to it, but for all intents and purposes, it is now fixed in place. So lastly, we are going to do these parts on the side. I will say, because these are open, you will want to file them or hammer them or do something that will mean that when the wearer wears them, they're not going to get scratched. That is very important, guys. You can close them, but it could still happen, so just make sure to file them. I don't have a file on me right now because the file I have is reserved for sterling silver, and you don't want to mix the file with that, otherwise you end up contaminating the sterling silver. So that's just a heads up that I won't be doing it, but you should, okay? It can take off the coating, so just be careful. So yeah, that's just something to be aware of. Hammering it probably is easier, but I'd still suggest filing it anyway, because if this is going to be worn against the skin, you do not want your person who is wearing it to get scratched. Okay, so now we're going to take our 7 inches of 1mm wire. Could have done that easier than that, but I'm just going to do exactly the same and match it to that rather than measure it again. There we go. And naturally it has a bit of a curve, but it'd just be easier to mould it around to your whatever shape you picked. Again, same again here. Okay, so we've got this shape and it's going to fit in there. And what you do before you create this shape, what I do is I actually wove it first, because we want to be able to move these, but we want the security as well. Don't forget, because this is a 1mm, we want the extra security on the frame. If you notice on this version, I've gone further along, so I'm going to be doing that. This was just my test run. So we're going to be going further along, and it's up to you which weave you decide to do. Again, it's, you know, if you see the 2 wire weaves connecting 2 base wires, I'll link that below and in that little eye. So it's nice and simple, and there's loads of different options, and I'm probably going to do the 1-1 this time, just because I feel like doing it, and apparently I want to use lots of different weaves in this one. You could do the exact same all the way along, entirely up to you. I'm just having one of those days where I want to play around with wire a bit more, so that's what I'm going to do. Obviously I'm going to do the same on both sides because I do want them to match, and then we'll do the coiling in, and then they'll just be moulding it, and that's pretty much it for the tutorial. But I'll get to doing that now. So I'm going to take my length of 40 centimeters. Actually, you know what, I'm going to do the same as what I did here. I'm going to take a length, I'm going to start in the middle. So I'm just going to do a couple of anchor wraps to this one. There we go. Remember, we can always readjust these later. Oops, the wire's getting caught on things. Now, because we do have so much going on here, just be aware of that happening. I'm just going to cut this over here. Bring that back down. Put that over there. Straighten this bit of wire out. I'm going to move everything off my desk. Okay, and I'm probably going to fast forward this bit again because, like I say, I'm just wrapping over and people have just come home, so it's going to be loud in the background and you don't really need to hear all their noise. So yeah, it's just going to be a 1-1 and I'll fast forward it, guys. Alright. Okay everybody, so I'm about to do the last part. I just wanted to show you here, I did the exact same wrap, I just did this a lot tighter than I did it on this side. So I just wanted to show this for a couple of reasons. One, it's still an easy wrap to do. The difference is you just try and maintain a bit of different distance here. It gives a little bit of extra detail. I personally prefer it tighter, but I just decided I'd have a play because again I'm just in that mood today. But as you can see, it's the exact same wrap. The difference is just that I made a little bit more distance here, and you could add in beads or do whatever at that point. I just wanted to show you that, you know, even though it's the same wrap, you can change it up and alter it and do things that suit you. I'm just going to show you how to do this. So now I just did it on camera quickly, but I know a lot of my viewers prefer me to talk through the different stages, so that's what we're going to do now. I'm going to take a pair of round nose pliers or your bail making pliers, whichever, decide where you want it to go in and begin the coil. I always cut off the flat side, as you should know by now, just so that we get a nice coil. And as I mentioned earlier, you can close this if you so choose. Just be careful obviously with it being against people's skin. And all I do is I just started bringing it down, and so it's basically just a really loose coil, and I would file this if I was going to have that against someone's skin. That is very important. And basically we just do the exact same on the other side, and don't forget, as we've done repeatedly, we can just adjust them. They don't have to be perfect, as I mentioned earlier. You know, jewellery making's fun, just enjoy it. Just bring that in. Okay, so they're roughly about the same. Same over here. So there we have the frame, and all we need to do now is mould it around something. If you so chose, you could, once it's moulded, hammer it in place. Obviously don't hammer the way you've wrapped because that will distort the wrapping. Or you could add in extra wire here to give the frame more make it more sturdy. You could wrap on some beads. You can do whatever. Okay, this is just the outline, and you can do whatever you want from that point onwards. So I'm just going to place this around here, and the love heart obviously needs to bend a bit, and so do the sides. So I'm just going to pull that. This is a little bit too small for the size of the frame, but it works basically the same. And the last part is I'm just going to form it around my own wrist. So I'm just going to, please excuse the state of my arms. I had a bad acne reaction recently, so that's why they look like that. Okay, so they see that is the frame, same as this one. The only difference being that the way we've done that, and I think this one is slightly bigger and smaller in parts, but that's not a big issue. It's up to you if you want to extend it or crunch it down. But yeah, that for all intents and purposes is our cuff. If you wanted to, you could then, to give it extra security, attach a clasp, you know, use some junk rings and have a clasp there. But that's it for this basic tutorial. This is, I don't know if you'd necessarily consider this a beginner's tutorial, but it is the simplest of the three. So maybe it's beginners to intermediate. it's not quite advanced enough to be an intermediate tutorial in my opinion, but it is a little bit more than a basic beginners. So yeah, I hope you've enjoyed this. Like I say, we've got a couple more coming that are gonna be a bit more advanced with a bit more detail, and we've got beads and stuff incorporated into that one. And then I've got the more advanced one. I haven't actually finished designing that one yet. What else? If you'd like to give this video a thumbs up, that would be lovely. You know, comment below if you've got anything that you'd like to see. There's a Facebook group as well. I mention that every time. You're all welcome to join, please do. I love having a chat with you guys, and I've had a few requests via that and private messages, which is great. I love to see that you guys are engaging and you're actually interested in what I'm doing. That's so sweet. Yeah, so if you could subscribe as well, if 1,000 subscribers YouTube starts to support me, that would be amazing. Yeah, so I think that's everything, and thank you all so much for watching and giving me your time and energy, and I hope you have a lovely day, and I'll see you again soon. Okay, bye.